we should be putting emphasis on the child recognizing the value they bring to the institution rather than the value that the institution brings to them as a child, right? Okay, so listen, let me say this though. I think because I'm all about, go where, first and foremost, where you can afford to go. The most important thing tradition, HBCU, ever. Damn, I need to go back to college. Whatever. Mm-hmm. Go where you can afford to get more education. There is value to more education.
But if you have the money, I would say, because we're on the West Coast, and this is the thing, had I been married on the East Coast and lived on the East Coast, I think the HBC would have came way different. Like, it would have been a given that would have been on our radar. But because I had these children and we moved 3,000 miles away, and the HBCUs do not visit the colleges on college night, there are no HBCUs. They do not come that far because they said the track record has been no one shows up. They come out, they do all this great work, and they don't have the participation from the schools as well, the support. Just saying this is what I asked when I was at Howard or whatever. How come you don't come? They can't afford it. It doesn't seem they don't get the numbers that they would expect, doing a college
from
night.
These West Coast schools.
From the West Coast schools. So the unfortunate part is that these great kids don't even know these schools exist. I have 2 girlfriends that both went to Howard that happened upon it because they were visiting someone on the East Coast, and they were like, what's that? And then demanded to their parents, like, I'm going here. I don't care what you say, because they had no clue. And they went there and they had the time of their lives. No one tells them about it. So even Royce and Ross, like our school now, Sierra Canyon, is starting to get more familiar with Howard because of the Anthony Andersons, the P. Diddy kids go there. Royce went there. Now more kids are now starting to apply to these HBCUs and putting them on the map in Sierra Canyon's mind, like, oh, these schools exist.
Yeah, you just have to have
and they're like,
driving that narrative from on the school side as parents.
We have to do better on the West Coast, Midwest, or wherever, to getting these schools to also visit, because there's value in all schools. If we say that, then the HBCUs should be represented as well, and they're not.
Okay, so what I was saying before you cut me off, I have some important information to share.
Okay,
what I was saying was that first and foremost, any education you can afford is valuable.
Correct.
The second piece is, I do agree with you. Again, if you got a traditional school that's saying, look, we're going to pay for your black kid to come to this school, and you got a HBCU's like, we don't have money for your child, you got to go take advantage, because we know people in those situations where the kid wants to go to a HBCU, and you got a traditional school who wants some diversity, who are paying black and brown kids to come to their school. Like, you got to take advantage of that.
Problem. The alumni have to give back. You got Harvard with like a $500 million
you got USC with this $1 billion endowment. All of these traditional schools got a ton of money, and the HBCUs are struggling. Can barely give you money. We're gonna get Royce across the finish line. God bless Robert Smith, who just paid for the 2019 graduating class of Morehouse.
But we need more.
386 kids won't have college loan debt.
Oh my God!
Because this one brother decided, look, he was a commencement speaker. He's a man of resource and wealth, and said, "This is my gift to you guys."
We need
That's
more
a big
of those.
move. Yes, we have to be in the service of others. But let me say this, because what I was trying to get to,
that was a big
before you cut me off for the second time,
but
is that yes, you want, in a situation, in a best case scenario, you would want your brown child, black child, to be in an environment that's supportive of who he is as a young man or a young woman. Now, to me, I think what happens is we have to have a real conversation. We get a lot of black people, brown people, so-called minorities. I don't like that word because we're not the minorities in this world. But you have people who think that, oh, I'm going to send my black child to this traditional white institution or to this Ivy League school because, oh, it should be an honor for him to be accepted in this environment because it makes them feel like there's some esteem and he's better than he's being chosen to go. When the reality is that we should be putting emphasis on the child recognizing the value they bring to the institution rather than the value that the institution brings to them as a child, right? Stop chasing the name brand and recognize that you also have a value that you bring to the institution.
Right.
And the hope is that you should go there, right? Like with this, look, you have a black child that's going to Harvard and you have a black child that's going to Howard University, right? You can take this black child who goes to Harvard and now he's walking around with this idea that the Harvard stamp is going to make me more capable and more hireable or desirable is the better word in the minds of the people that hire me, right? You can take somebody like Diddy, I'll use him, he's a great example of somebody that went to Howard and it's not about Howard being on my resume and that making me more desirable. It's about me going to Howard and coming away from that institution with something as a black man that lets me know that I'm walking out into the universe now as a boss, as a leader, as a creator, as somebody who can build industry, right?
Correct.
And so now again, that's two different mindsets.
Right.
So in that regard, I would much rather send, or I feel so much more comfortable sending our son to Howard, Royce going in his third year, or Ross who aspires to go to Howard or Hampton, we're still trying to figure, or UDC or wherever he lands.
Right.
The point is that to get them in an institution, to get them on track to getting that bachelor's degree, to get them on track to going, if you want your master's or your doctorate or whatever as much education as you can afford within reason, right? And building those relationships, right, that become lifelong relationships that you can access. Because what's the value of going to Harvard and building relationships with people that don't care about you? Right.
That is crazy. Just imagine if all the HBCUs had the endowments of the Howards, the Yales, all the
Princeton's,
Ivy Leagues,
the Penns, all
and
that.
our children
Brown.
decided to go to those schools and not to the traditional schools. Our athletes, our mathematicians, our scientists, our engineers decided to go to traditional HBCUs. We could be, we could change the game, especially the athletes. But let me say this though as well. That one athlete that chose the HBCU over.
But here's the thing.
We can do it.
The problem is that structurally in this country, we have as a people had to create HBCUs in order to be educated. The reality is there shouldn't be a need for an HBCU, right? If the country was set up to be fair and equal, we wouldn't have to create separate institutions where we can go into institutions trusting that these people are going to make sure that I get a quality education, or I'm not going to be segregated against, or I'm not going to go into an institution and feel isolated because of the color of my skin. So again, that's a bigger issue. But I think, go ahead.
No, my girlfriend and I were just talking about it this weekend. Like, if our athletes didn't go to these big 16 or whatever,
well, that's the money chase, though. Yeah, but we could put them.
I mean, it would be it could be a game changer because we could do it in our own.
But way. You don't have. Look, that's going to be a whole separate conversation about the student athletes and representation on campus and what's the value of an athlete to the school. And so we're going to address that in a whole separate episode. But for this one, I think we're on the same page. I agree with you in that there is great value in sending your brown or black child to a historically black institution because of the level of support that they'll get. But more importantly, with what they're able to walk away from the institution with in terms of their self-identification. Right. And building that trust that they built and the camaraderie that they built with other people who look like them.
Exactly.
And that's important. You want to be comfortable with
it. I mean, when I introduced it to him, he was like, what is that? Like unfortunately, he didn't know Then we visited, and his godfather was like, even he said, and he's a Jewish man, and was like, he went to Brown, right?
He went to Brown.
He went to Brown, and he said there's something. Now he's talking to us like we don't know, but he was like, he was so for him going to be with his people because, as you know, the Jewish religion, they start from when they're kindergarten, they go to Jewish schools, whatever they're called, I don't know. And then they have their universities that they prefer as well. So they kind of stick together. I believe we're the only people that don't really stick together. We have really nothing.
Well, you can't say we don't have anything. We got HBCUs.
We do, but we don't have any traditions. There's no nothing. There's no.
Well, we do. We just don't have to serve them out.
There's no. Everybody's a different religion and this and that, and there's no way to really uplift these kids. And when I just one point, I just found out that Jewish people have a thing called birthright. Now I didn't know anything about that. That they send, if you're Jewish and can prove that your bloodline is whatever, 90% Jewish or whatever it is, they send you on a free trip to Jerusalem to learn about your culture. Absolutely free. Airline ticket, all your food, your lodging, everything. But they stick together. We have nothing like that for our children. There's no bar mitzvah. Even Latino have quinceañeras and all of this. We have nothing. There's no traditions. There's nothing. My kids went to about 1,000 bar mitzvahs. There's nothing we can invite them to that is a tradition for African American kids. There's just nothing.
You have to build it.
It's insane.
What's not Christmas? What's the other?
Kwanzaa.
We celebrate. That's a tradition. You have to start it somewhere.
Yeah.
So, all right. You just went off on a whole different tangent.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, this is why it's so important for me, because this is my little mecca. My birthright situation, my bar mitzvah, my whatever. This is all we have are these HBCUs to give our children, And I'm telling you now, if you're thinking about an HBCU, you better get ready. They're not you have to be academically sound. They're not just letting you in because you're black. And now that Beyonce and Kamala Harris and all these people are bigging HBCUs up, the competition is stiff. You hear me? Where years ago you could get in, you could, slide in, not anymore. Morehouse, Spelman, Howard, Hampton, the best of the best. So get your grades up, just like any traditional school, you have to have the grades.
All right, so listen. In this episode, in the comments, y'all leave in the comments, let us know if you went to a HBCU.
Right.
And let us know what you think the value of going to a HBCU is. Or if you went to a traditional school, let us know what traditional school you went to. But drop your college in the comments. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And be sure to hit the share button because sharing is caring.
But
no, don't. You about to start another conversation.
No. On YouTube, is it share button or subscribe?
But they can subscribe and there's a way to share. They can hit the share.
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
You don't
to
know there's a share button on YouTube? Have you ever been on YouTube?
We just moved to YouTube.
Okay, goodbye. Say goodbye, Florida. I'm gonna go beat her up. She's talking crazy. All right, we out. We'll see y'all on the next episode.
You supposed to say bye?
Say goodbye, Florida.
Bye. Why can't you call me New Jersey or Brooklyn? Am I from Florida?
You're not. You act like Weezy.
I do not act like Weezy. And see.